The transport ship landed on Platform 7 with a soft hiss. The doors opened slowly and bright light flooded into the dark interior. Minji stepped out first, her boots making a quiet sound on the metal floor. Behind her, 20 other humans followed in 2 neat lines. They wore simple gray uniforms with Earth's symbol on the shoulder. A small blue planet with white clouds. All around the platform, alien cadets had gathered to watch. There were hundreds of them. Some stood 3 meters tall with scales that gleamed like metal in the artificial sunlight. Others had forearms and eyes that could see in colors humans didn't have names for. A few floated in the air, their bodies made of something that looked like living crystal. They were all staring at the humans. "Look at them," someone said in the common language that all species used. "They're so small and soft," another voice added. "No armor plating. No natural weapons. How did they even survive on their planet?" Laughter rippled through the crowd. It wasn't mean laughter, not exactly. It was the kind of laughter that came from genuine confusion. How could these tiny, weak creatures think they belonged at the Galactic Military Academy? This was the most elite training facility in known space. Only the strongest came here. Only the best. Minji kept her face calm. She had expected this. Every human had been warned before they left Earth. The briefing officer had been very clear. "You will be different," he had said. "You will be smaller. You will look weaker. They will not understand. Not at first." Beside her, Deho adjusted the pack on his shoulders. "Friendly crowd," he muttered quietly. "Very friendly," Minji replied. She didn't smile. She didn't frown. She just walked forward with her squad following behind her. The walk from Platform 7 to the Academy's main building took 10 minutes. It felt much longer. The alien cadets lined both sides of the path, watching them pass. Some pointed. Some whispered. A few made sounds that might have been their version of laughter. The main building was enormous. It had to be, to fit so many different species. The doors were 5 meters tall. The ceilings inside stretched up so high that Minji couldn't see where they ended. Everything was built to accommodate giants. The humans looked very small in that huge space. An instructor was waiting for them in the entrance hall. He was a Drachnor, one of the reptilian species. His scales were deep purple and his eyes were the color of old gold. He stood on 2 powerful legs and his tail swept back and forth across the floor as he looked down at the new arrivals. "Earth Squad," he said. His voice sounded like rocks grinding together. "I am Instructor Vrath. You will follow me to orientation." He turned and walked away without waiting to see if they would follow. His long legs covered distance quickly. The humans had to walk fast to keep up. More laughter followed them through the halls. The orientation room was massive. It was already filled with cadets from a dozen different worlds. When the humans entered, the noise level increased. Everyone wanted to look at the newcomers from the small blue planet that nobody had heard of until recently. Instructor Vrath pointed to a section of seats that had been modified for smaller species. "Sit there," he said. "Try not to break anything." More laughter. Louder this time, Minji led her squad to their seats. The chairs were still too big, made for species taller than humans. Her feet didn't quite touch the floor. She saw Soman, one of the younger cadets, struggling with the same problem. Soman's face was red, but she kept her mouth shut. Instructor Vrath moved to the center of the room. A holographic display appeared in the air above him. It showed images of battles, training exercises, and various weapons. "Welcome to the Galactic Military Academy," he began. "You are here because your worlds believe you have potential. Some of you may actually have it." His golden eyes swept across the room and landed on the human section. "You will be tested in every way possible. Combat, strategy, endurance, tactics. Many of you will fail. Most species send their candidates home after the first month. Earth." He paused and his mouth pulled back to show rows of sharp teeth. It might have been a smile. "Earth is new to the galactic community. Your methods are unknown to us. Your combat techniques are primitive. Your technology is centuries behind ours." Someone in the crowd made a sound like a cough. Others joined in. It was definitely laughter now. "But," Vrath continued, "every species deserves a chance to prove themselves, or to fail trying." The holographic display changed. It now showed a human figure next to figures from other species. The human looked tiny in comparison, fragile, like it might blow away in a strong wind. "Humans," Vrath said, "evolved on a Class 7 world. That means standard gravity, standard atmosphere, no unusual radiation. one of the safest classifications. Your bones are light. Your muscles are weak compared to most species here. You have no natural armor, no claws, no venom. You are by all measurements unsuited for military service at this level. Minji felt her jaw tighten. Beside her, Hyun had crossed his arms. His face showed nothing, but his hands were gripping his biceps so hard that his knuckles had gone white. However, Vrath continued, "We have protocols. You will be given the same tests as everyone else. You will be held to the same standards. You will receive no special treatment because of your limitations." He tapped a control and the display changed again. Now it showed a schedule. Training times. Combat drills. Endurance runs. Strategy simulations. Tomorrow training begins. I suggest you rest tonight. You will need it. The orientation ended. Cadets began filing out of the room, heading to their assigned quarters. As the humans stood up, a group of tall armored aliens blocked their path. They wore the dark blue uniforms of senior cadets. "Earth Squad," one of them said. He had a voice like thunder. Word of advice. Go home now. Save yourselves the embarrassment. This academy breaks trained warriors. You won't last a week. Maybe 3 days, another one added. The group laughed and walked away. Minji watched them go. Then she turned to her squad. 20 faces looked back at her. Young faces. Determined faces. Faces that had traveled across space because Earth had chosen them. Because Earth believed in them. Ignore them, she said quietly. We're here to train. That's what we'll do. Easy to say, Daeho muttered. Hard to do when everyone thinks we're a joke. Then we'll surprise them, Minji replied. How? Someone asked. Her voice was small. They're right, aren't they? Look at them. Look at us. We're not like them. We can't be. Minji looked around the massive room, at the giant doors, at the ceiling so high it might as well be the sky. Then she looked back at her squad. No, she said. We're not like them. We're human. That's going to have to be enough. They filed out of the orientation room together, following signs to the human quarters. Behind them, laughter echoed through the halls. Ahead of them, tomorrow waited. And with it, the chance to prove that Earth had not made a mistake in sending them. In the shadows of the upper observation deck, General Vexathor watched the small figures disappear down the corridor. His aide stood beside him, making notes on a data pad. The human squad seems inadequate, the aide said. Perhaps Earth should reconsider their participation in the program. The general said nothing. He just watched the empty corridor with ancient eyes that had seen too many wars. Finally he spoke, one word. So quiet the aide almost missed it. Pray, sir? But the general had already turned away, walking toward his office with slow, heavy steps. Steps that carried memories the young aide couldn't imagine. Memories of a battlefield on the edge of known space. Memories of humans doing impossible things. Memories that still woke him in the night. Tomorrow would be very interesting indeed. Morning came early at the Galactic Military Academy. The lights in the human quarters turned on at exactly 500 hours. Minji was already awake. She'd been awake for 30 minutes, sitting on her bunk and thinking about the day ahead. Around her, the other humans were waking up, groaning, stretching, getting ready for their first real day of training. I barely slept, Soman said. Her bed was across from Minji's. The gravity feels wrong, and everything is so big. The gravity is standard, Hyun said from his bunk. 0.98 Earth normal. You'll adjust, says you, Daeho grumbled. He was pulling on his training uniform. I had dreams about being stepped on by those big lizard guys. Draknor, Minji corrected. They're called Draknor, and they're not going to step on us, probably. That got a few weak laughs. Good, they needed to laugh. They needed to stay loose. Fear was useful, but too much fear would freeze them. They dressed in their training uniforms. Gray pants, gray shirts, gray jackets. Simple clothes designed for movement. On their shoulders, the Earth symbol looked very small compared to the elaborate emblems worn by other species. The dining hall was already crowded when they arrived. Aliens of every shape and size filled the enormous space. The noise was incredible. Dozens of different languages and voices mixed together into a sound like continuous thunder. The humans got their food and found an empty table near the back. The portions were strange, too large for them, but designed to feed species that needed more calories. Minji ate what she could. They would need energy today. Look, Daeho said quietly. He nodded toward the entrance. General Vexthor had entered the dining hall. The noise level dropped immediately. Everyone knew the general. He was a legend. He had fought in the border wars. He had survived the siege of Carthex. He had medals that dated back 50 years. The general was tall even for his species. His skin was gray and covered in old scars. He walked with a slight limp, and his right arm had been replaced with a mechanical one that gleamed in the light. He moved slowly through the hall, his eyes scanning the room. Those eyes stopped on the human table. Minji felt her heart beat faster. The general was looking directly at them. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then the general nodded once, just a small movement of his head, and continued walking. What was that about? Someone whispered. No idea, Minji replied. But something in the general's eyes had seemed familiar. Recognition, maybe, or warning. Training began at 700 hours sharp. All the cadets gathered in the main training complex, a massive building with a dozen different exercise areas. The humans stood in their formation, trying not to look as nervous as they felt. Instructor Vrath appeared on a raised platform. Behind him were other instructors from different species. They all looked down at the assembled cadets with expressions that ranged from bored to hostile. Today we begin with basic conditioning, Vrath announced. You will complete the standard endurance course. All species. Same course. Same standards. If you cannot complete it in the allotted time, you fail. A holographic display showed the course. It looked brutal. 3 kilometers of obstacles, climbing walls, rope bridges, and steep hills. The time limit was 30 minutes. That's impossible. Someone whispered near the human formation. Look at the height of those walls. The ropes are spaced for species with 4 arms, another voice added. We're going to fail on the first day, Somin said. Her voice was shaking. Minji turned to look at her squad. 20 faces, 20 worried expressions. Listen to me, she said quietly. I know this looks hard. But we trained for this. Back on Earth, remember the gravity pit? Remember the mountain runs? This is what we practiced for. Earth gravity is different, Hyun said. Lower here. Exactly, Minji replied. Which means we're stronger here than we were at home. We can do this. She wasn't sure she believed it. But she had to make them believe. The cadets were divided into groups by species. Each group would run the course separately, so times could be compared. The Draknor went first. They completed the course in 18 minutes, moving with powerful grace despite their size. The crystalline species went next. They floated over some obstacles and shaped their bodies to fit through others. 23 minutes, species after species completed the course, some faster, some slower, some barely made the time limit. A few failed completely and had to be carried off the course by medical teams. Earth Squad, Vrath called. You're next. The humans moved to the starting line. Around them, other cadets had gathered to watch. Minji could hear the whispers, the quiet laughter. Nobody expected them to finish. They were too small, too weak, too fragile. Ready, Vrath said. He raised his hand. Begin! Minji ran. Behind her, 20 other humans ran. They hit the first obstacle together, a wall 4 meters high, too tall to climb directly. But there were handholds, small grips designed for different alien anatomies. Minji jumped, grabbed a hold, pulled herself up. Her arms burned. Her shoulders screamed. But she kept climbing. Below her, she heard Somin struggling, heard Daeho grunting with effort. She reached the top and rolled over, kept running. No time to wait, no time to help. Everyone had to make it on their own. The second obstacle was a rope bridge across a wide gap. The ropes were thick, spaced wide apart, designed for species with 4 arms who could grab multiple ropes at once. Humans only had 2 arms. Minji stepped onto the first rope. It swayed under her weight. She grabbed the upper rope with both hands and started moving sideways, shuffling her feet along the lower rope. It was slow, too slow. But it worked. Behind her, the other humans followed. She could hear some of them slipping, catching themselves, continuing forward. On the observation platform above the course, General Vexthor stood watching. Beside him, Instructor Vrath was shaking his head. They'll never make the time, Vrath said. They're too slow, too weak. I don't understand why Earth insisted on sending them. The general said nothing. His eyes tracked the small figures moving through the course. They looked like children compared to the other species. But they kept moving, kept fighting forward. Perhaps we should lower the standards for them, Vrath continued. Give them extra time. It seems cruel to judge them by the same measures as species built for combat. No, the general said quietly. His voice was rough, like rocks grinding. Don't lower the standards, but sir, they'll fail. Look at them. They can barely climb the walls. The general's mechanical hand gripped the railing. Servos whined as he squeezed too hard. On the course below, a human had fallen from the rope bridge. She hung by her hands, legs swinging over the gap. The watching aliens were laughing. The human pulled herself back up. "Kept moving, sir," Vrath said. "What should we do about the Earth Squad?" General Vexthor turned to look at the instructor. His scarred face was expressionless, but his eyes held something that made Vrath take a step back. Fear. Old fear. The kind that came from experience. The general leaned closer. When he spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. Soft enough that only Vrath could hear, but the word carried weight. Carried meaning that Vrath didn't understand. Pray. Then the general turned and walked away, his mechanical leg clicking softly with each step. Vrath watched him go, confused. Pray for what? That the humans would somehow succeed? That seemed unlikely. They were clearly outmatched. Down on the course, Minji had reached the steep hill. Her lungs were burning. Her legs felt like they were made of stone. Behind her, she could hear the others. Some were keeping pace. Some were falling behind. But they were all still moving. The hill was 45 degrees. Loose gravel covered the surface. Alien cadets watched from the sides, their faces showing amusement. One of them, a tall creature with blue skin and 3 eyes, called out, "Give up, humans." "This is too much for you." Minji ignored them. She put one foot in front of the other, grabbed handfuls of gravel, pulled herself upward. Her hands were bleeding. She could feel blood inside her shoes where blisters had formed and popped. It didn't matter. She kept climbing. Halfway up the hill, she heard crying behind her. She looked back. Somin had fallen. She was sitting in the gravel, tears running down her face. "I can't," Somin said. "It's too much. I can't do it." "Yes, you can," Minji called down. "Get up, keep moving." "I can't." "You can." Hyun appeared beside Somin. He didn't help her stand. The rules forbid helping other cadets. But he looked down at her with fierce eyes. "Get up now, we don't quit." "We're human," Daeho added from further up the hill. "We don't quit." Somin stared at them. Then slowly she stood up. Her legs were shaking, but she started climbing again. They reached the top of the hill together. Below them, the alien cadets had gone quiet. The laughter had stopped. They were watching now with something else in their eyes. Not quite respect, but not mockery either. Something closer to confusion. The final obstacles passed in a blur of pain. Rope climbs, balance beams. A wall with no handholds that had to be scaled using pure grip strength. Minji's hands were numb. Her arms wouldn't stop shaking. But she kept moving. The finish line appeared ahead. A simple line painted on the ground. She could see the timer above it. 28 minutes. 30 seconds. They were going to make it. Barely. But they were going to make it. She crossed the line and collapsed. Around her, other humans were crossing, falling, lying on the ground and gasping for air. Somin crossed last with only seconds to spare. She fell to her knees and threw up, but she had finished. Instructor Vrath said 3 days had passed since the endurance course. 3 days of training that seemed designed to break them. The humans kept going. Their bodies hurt constantly. Their muscles screamed. Their joints ached. But they kept going. Word had spread through the academy. The Earth Squad had completed the first course. All of them. Nobody had expected that. Some alien cadets were starting to watch them differently, with curiosity instead of mockery. Others were watching with something that might have been concern. On the morning of the 4th day, the training changed. Instead of endurance, they would be tested on strength and carrying capacity. The humans gathered in one of the smaller training halls with cadets from 5 other species. Instructor Vrath stood at the front of the room. Behind him were stacks of equipment, weighted packs, armor pieces, training weapons. Everything looked heavy. "Today you will learn to move under combat load," Vrath announced. "In real combat you carry your equipment, your weapons, your supplies. Sometimes you carry wounded comrades. A soldier who cannot bear weight is useless." He gestured to the stacks behind him. "You will each carry a load equivalent to your body weight. You will complete the vertical course wearing this load. Time limit is 45 minutes. The vertical course was visible through the transparent wall of the training hall. It was a nightmare of ladders, climbing walls, and platforms that went up nearly 30 floors. The humans stared at it. They had seen other species complete the vertical course. It was hard even without extra weight. Body weight, someone whispered. That's impossible. That's the standard, Vrath said. His hearing was very good. If you cannot meet the standard, you fail. Failed cadets are sent home. Earth's reputation in the galactic community is already questionable. I suggest you do not make it worse. The other species went first. The Draknor moved up the vertical course with powerful ease, their muscled legs driving them upward. Their weighted packs looked small on their massive frames. They finished in 20 minutes. The blue-skinned species went next. They had trouble with the weight but managed to finish in 38 minutes. One of them fell and had to be caught by safety nets, but most of them made it. Earth Squad, Vrath called. Step forward. Minji led her squad to the equipment area. An assistant instructor, a small gray alien with 6 arms, handed each human a weighted pack. The moment Minji took hers, she nearly dropped it. It was incredibly heavy. She looked at the weight marker. 58 kilograms. Exactly her body weight. She strapped the pack onto her back. Her knees nearly buckled. Around her, the other humans were struggling with their own packs. Daiho, who was larger, had a pack that weighed 70 kilograms. He grunted as he lifted it. This is insane, he muttered. Standard load, Vrath said. Other species manage. Surely humans can as well, unless Earth wishes to admit their cadets are inferior. Minji felt anger flash through her. Good. Anger was energy. Anger was fuel. She turned to her squad. We can do this. One step at a time. Don't look up. Don't think about the top. Just climb. They approached the vertical course. The first section was a ladder that went straight up for 10 meters. Minji grabbed the rungs and started climbing. The weight on her back wanted to pull her backward. Wanted to drag her down. She held on tighter. Pulled herself up. One rung, then another. Then another. Her arms were shaking by the time she reached the first platform. Behind her, she could hear the others climbing. Some were moving fast. Some were moving slow. But they were all moving. The second section was worse. A climbing wall with small handholds. The weight on her back made every movement twice as hard. She had to lean forward to keep from falling backward, had to grip each hold with all her strength. Halfway up the wall, she heard a cry below her. She looked down. One of the humans, a young man named Junho, had slipped. He was hanging by one hand, his legs swinging in empty air. The safety net was far below. Grab on, Hyun shouted from a nearby section. Don't let go! Junho's face was twisted with effort. His hand was slipping. The weight on his back was too much. He couldn't pull himself back up. Then something happened that made the watching aliens go silent. Unyo reached back with his free hand, found a strap on his pack, and pulled. The pack shifted. Not much, just enough. Just enough to change his center of balance. He swung his legs, caught a foothold, and pulled himself back onto the wall. He kept climbing. On the observation platform, General Vexthor stood watching. His aide was beside him, making notes. Remarkable, the aide said. He should have fallen. The weight distribution was wrong. How did he recover? The general said nothing. He just watched. Instructor Vrath was also watching. He looked confused. His datapad showed human strength levels. They were not impressive compared to other species. These creatures should not be able to carry this much weight. Should not be able to climb with this burden. But they were doing it how? Minji reached the third platform. Her vision was starting to blur. Sweat poured down her face. Her hands were bleeding again, leaving red marks on the climbing holds. She wanted to stop, wanted to take the pack off, wanted to rest. She kept climbing. The humans below her were spreading out across the vertical course. Some were ahead, some were behind, but all of them were still moving. The alien cadets watching from below had stopped laughing. They were staring in silence now. One of the Draknor instructors spoke to Vrath. This doesn't make sense. Look at their muscle structure. Look at their skeletal density. They're too weak for this. They should be collapsing. I know, Vrath replied. His voice sounded strange. I've checked the calculations 3 times. According to every model we have, they should have failed by now. Then why haven't they? Vrath had no answer. The 4th platform. The 5th. The 6th. Minji stopped counting. Just kept climbing. Her body was moving on automatic now. Her conscious mind had gone somewhere else. Somewhere quiet and dark where the pain couldn't reach. She had learned this trick in training back on Earth. When the instructors made them run until they vomited. When they made them carry logs through mud until their shoulders bled. When they made them do exercises that seemed designed to break them, she had learned to put her mind away, to let her body work without thinking. All the humans had learned this trick. Because on Earth, training was not meant to be possible, it was meant to push past possible into something beyond, into something that broke you down so completely that what came out the other side was different, harder, stronger. The other species didn't understand this. Their training was difficult but reasonable, designed to build on natural abilities. Earth's training was different. It was designed to create abilities that didn't exist naturally, to force the body beyond its limits until those limits expanded. Minji reached the 20th platform. 15 more to go. Below her, she could see the tiny figures of aliens watching. They looked like toys from this height. Above her, the top of the course seemed impossibly far away. She kept climbing. Time became meaningless. There was only the next handhold. The next step. The next platform. Her body screamed at her. Her muscles begged her to stop. She ignored them. She had learned to ignore them long ago. Somewhere below, Soman was crying as she climbed. Tears ran down her face, but her hands kept moving, kept reaching for the next hold. She remembered her first day at Earth's training facility. The drill instructor had said something that had seemed cruel at the time. "You will learn to cry and work at the same time," he had said. "Tears don't stop bullets. Tears don't win battles. Tears are just water. Keep moving." She had hated him for that. Now she understood. Tears were just water. She kept climbing. Deho reached the 30th platform and collapsed. His legs wouldn't work anymore. He lay there gasping, his pack crushing him into the floor. He had failed. He couldn't go on. Then he heard voices below him. Human voices. Calling up to him. "Get up. Keep moving. Don't stop now. We're human. We don't quit." He lay there for another moment. Then slowly he pushed himself to his knees. His legs were shaking so badly he could barely stand. But he stood. And when he stood, he started climbing again. The top platform. Minji reached it and fell. She couldn't stand anymore. Couldn't move. The pack on her back felt like it weighed 1,000 kilograms. She lay there and watched the timer above the platform. 32 minutes. She had made it. Barely. But she had made it. One by one, the other humans reached the top. Some fast, some slow. Some crawled across the final platform because their legs had stopped working. But they all made it. Even Junho, who had nearly fallen. Even Soman, who had cried the whole way. Even Deho, who had collapsed and gotten back up. All 21 humans completed the vertical course under full combat load. The last one finished with 90 seconds to spare. In the training hall below, the alien cadets stood in absolute silence. They stared at the small figures collapsed on the top platform. Those tiny, weak creatures had just done something that many of them would have struggled to complete. Instructor Vrath looked at his data pad again. The numbers still didn't make sense. He turned to the Draknor instructor beside him. "This is impossible. Their strength measurements don't support this performance." "Then your measurements are wrong," the other instructor said quietly. "The measurements are accurate. I've verified them personally." Week 3 at the academy began with tactical combat training. Real weapons, live ammunition, simulated battlefield conditions. The humans had survived the physical tests. Now they would face something more dangerous, something that could kill them if they made mistakes. The training facility was located in a separate building. Thick walls, reinforced floors, medical teams standing by. The combat scenarios here were as close to real warfare as training could get. Cadets had died here before, not many, but enough that everyone took it seriously. Minji stood with her squad in the briefing room. Around them, cadets from 6 other species waited for instructions. The atmosphere was tense. Combat training was different. It wasn't just about endurance or strength. It was about thinking, reacting, surviving. Instructor Vrath entered with 3 other instructors. They all looked serious. One of them, a tall creature covered in silver fur, stepped forward. "I'm Combat Master Threx," she said. Her voice was surprisingly gentle. "Today you will enter the combat maze. You will face multiple hostile targets. You will have live weapons. The targets will have weapons that fire pain rounds. They do not kill, but they hurt. Very much." She tapped a control and a holographic display appeared. It showed a complex maze of corridors, rooms, and obstacles. You will enter in mixed teams. Your objective is to reach the central chamber and secure it. The enemy will try to stop you. You will have 30 minutes. Teams that fail to secure the objective will repeat the exercise tomorrow and the next day until they succeed or wash out. The room went quiet. Washing out meant going home. Being sent back to your planet in failure. Nobody wanted that. Teams are already assigned, Threx continued. Check your data pads. Minji looked at her pad. Her team had 5 members, herself, Deho, and 3 aliens. 1 Drachnor named Kelvar, 1 blue-skinned female named Lyra, 1 crystalline being who didn't seem to have a name, just a pattern of sounds that the translator rendered as clicks. She looked around and found her team members. Kelvar was easy to spot. He was massive, over 2 meters tall, with scales the color of brass. Lyra stood near him, her 3 eyes studying the humans with obvious doubt. The crystalline being hovered nearby, its body constantly shifting colors. You're the human leader? Kelvar asked. His voice was deep but not unfriendly. Yes, Minji replied. Minji, this is Deho. I know who you are. Everyone knows about the Earth Squad. You completed the endurance course. The vertical course. That was impressive. He paused. For your size. Minji ignored the last part. Have you done combat training before? 3 times. Failed twice. This is my last chance. Kelvar's face was hard to read, but his voice carried worry. If I fail again, I go home. My family will be dishonored. We won't fail, Minji said. How can you know that? Because we can't afford to fail either. They were given 15 minutes to plan. The team gathered around the holographic display, studying the maze. It was complex. Multiple paths. Lots of choke points. Perfect places for ambushes. We should move fast, Lyra suggested. Hit hard and overwhelm the defenders before they can set up. Too risky, Kelvar countered. We should advance slowly. Check every corner. Be methodical. They argued back and forth. Minji listened. Both approaches had merit. Both had flaws. Finally, she spoke up. We do both. Kelvar, you and Deho take the left corridor. Move slow and careful. Draw their attention. Lyra and I will take the right corridor with clicks. She gestured to the crystalline being. We move fast. While they're focused on Kelvar's team, we hit them from the side. That splits our force, Kelvar said. Basic tactics say we should stay together. Basic tactics assume the enemy knows we're coming. We use surprise. Hit them from 2 directions. They won't expect us to split up this early. Kelvar stared at her. This small human, barely reaching his chest, was giving him tactical advice. He wanted to argue, but something in her eyes made him stop. She had the look of someone who had done this before, who had survived by making hard choices. Fine, he said. We try your way. The combat maze was dark. Emergency lights provided just enough illumination to see. Minji held her weapon carefully. It was a standard training rifle. Lighter than real combat weapons, but still deadly if used wrong. The pain rounds it fired were designed to stop enemies without killing them. But at close range, they could break bones. She moved down the right corridor with Lyra and clicks. Behind them, she could hear Kelvar and Deho moving down the left corridor. Heavy footsteps. They weren't trying to be quiet. Good. That was the plan. The first contact came fast. 2 targets appeared at the end of the corridor. They fired immediately. Minji dropped to one knee and returned fire. Her rounds hit one target in the chest. It collapsed, the computer registering a hit. Beside her, Lyra took out the second target. Moving, Minji said quietly. They advanced quickly but carefully. Every corner was a potential ambush. Every doorway was a threat. This was what humans trained for. Not just shooting, but thinking while shooting. Moving while thinking. Staying alive while doing all of it at once. They reached a junction. 3 paths. Minji made a quick decision. Straight ahead, fast, they moved. Behind them, they heard gunfire. Kelvar's team had made contact. Heavy fire, lots of noise. The defenders were focusing on them. Perfect. Minji's team reached a large room. 6 targets inside, too many to take on directly. She signaled to stop. Lyra looked at her questioningly. We wait, Minji whispered. Count to 30. Then we hit them fast. They waited. It was hard. Every second felt like an hour. The targets in the room were alert, watching the entrance they had come through. They expected another frontal assault. 30 seconds passed. Minji moved. Not through the door. Through a gap in the wall that she had spotted earlier. A maintenance access, barely large enough for her to fit through. But she fit. She came out behind the targets. She opened fire. Hit 2 targets before they knew she was there. Lyra came through the door at the same moment, hitting 2 more. Clicks floated through the gap and took out the last 2 with eerie precision. 6 targets down, room secured, and they had done it in less than 5 seconds. How did you see that gap? Lyra asked. Her voice carried respect now. Looked for it, Minji replied. Buildings always have weak points. Maintenance access. Emergency exits. Things designed for small technicians. They kept moving. The central chamber was ahead. They could hear fighting. Kelvar and Deho had engaged the main force of defenders. The sounds of combat echoed through the maze. Minji led her team through a side passage. It was tight, made for maintenance drones. But humans could fit. Barely. They crawled through darkness, weapons ready, breathing controlled. They emerged in a storage room adjacent to the central chamber. Through a window, Minji could see the battle. Kelvar and Deho were pinned down behind barricades. 8 defenders had them trapped. They were returning fire but couldn't advance. We need to help them, Lyra said. We will. But not from here. Minji pointed up. Above the central chamber was a catwalk, a maintenance platform used for repairs. Can you reach that? Maybe, Lyra said. If I jump. But I might miss. I can lift you, Click said. Its voice was like chimes. I can float up there. Then that's what we do. Get above them. Hit them from up high while they're focused below. Clicks lifted Minji first. Its body extended into tendrils that wrapped around her carefully. Then it floated upward, carrying her to the catwalk. It felt strange. Like flying. But she didn't have time to think about it. As soon as her feet touched the metal walkway, she moved into position. Clicks brought Lyra up next, then positioned itself to provide covering fire. Minji looked down at the scene below. 8 defenders, focused on Kelvar and Deho, not looking up. Why would they? Most species didn't think vertically. They fought on one level. Humans thought differently. Humans climbed. Humans looked for height. It was how their ancestors had survived. By climbing trees. By finding high ground. By using the 3rd dimension that ground-bound predators ignored. Minji opened fire. Her first round hit a defender in the back. He collapsed. The other spun around, confused. Where was the fire coming from? They looked at the doors. At the walls. Not up, Lyra fired. 2 more defenders went down. Now they understood. They started looking up. Started trying to aim at the catwalk. But they had to expose themselves to do it. And when they exposed themselves, Kelvar and Deho shot them from the ground. The battle lasted less than 15 seconds. 8 defenders neutralized. Central chamber secured. Kelvar stood up from behind his barricade. He looked up at the catwalk. At the small human looking down at him. His face showed something that might have been shock. Or might have been respect. Mission complete, the computer announced. Time elapsed, 18 minutes. Team successful. They gathered in the central chamber. Kelvar approached Minji. How did you know to go up? I've done this exercise 3 times. I never thought to look up. Humans always look up, Minji said. And down. And behind. And everywhere else. Our planet taught us to. Your planet? Earth. We had predators that hunted from above. From below. From all sides. We learned to think in 3 dimensions. To never assume safety. To always have an escape route. Lyra nodded slowly. I understand now. You're not weak. You're just different. You think different. We survive different, Deho added. He was checking his weapon, making sure it was safe. Earth didn't make a... The final week of basic training arrived. 12 weeks had passed since the Earth squad had arrived at the academy. 12 weeks of tests, challenges, and pain. The humans had survived all of it. More than survived. They had excelled in ways nobody had expected. The graduation ceremony would be held in the main assembly hall. All cadets who had completed basic training would receive their badges and assignments. But first, there was one final test. The simulation. The simulation was legendary. Every cadet feared it. It was a full-scale combat scenario that lasted 8 hours. No breaks, no pauses. Just continuous combat against an AI that adapted to every move you made. The AI learned from you. Evolved with you. Became better as you became better. Failure rate was 40%, even among species bred for warfare. Minji stood with her squad in the prep room. They were all quiet. Nervous. In 12 weeks, they had become something more than they had been. Harder, stronger, more confident. But this was different. This was the final test. This was what would determine if they truly belonged here. "Remember the plan," she said quietly. "We stick together. Watch each other's backs, communicate, adapt. And when the plan fails," Tejo asked, "then we improvise. Like humans do." The simulation chamber was vast, large enough to hold multiple battlefield environments: urban combat, forest combat, desert combat, mountain combat. The AI would cycle through all of them, testing every skill they had learned. The humans entered the chamber with squads from 4 other species, 70 cadets total. They would all face the same challenges, all fight the same battles, all survive or fail together. The lights dimmed. The simulation began. The chamber transformed into a city street. Buildings rose around them. The sky turned dark with smoke. In the distance, they could hear explosions. "The sounds of war, contact front," someone shouted. Enemy targets appeared. The AI's forces. They fired immediately. Cadets scattered for cover. The battle had begun. For the first hour, everything went according to plan. The cadets worked together, covered each other, advanced methodically. They secured building after building, pushed the enemy back. They were winning. Then the AI adapted. The enemy stopped attacking in predictable patterns. They started using flanking maneuvers, ambush tactics. Exactly the things humans had used in the combat maze. The AI had learned from them. Now it was using their own tactics against them. Casualties mounted. Not real casualties, but the simulation registered hits, registered injuries, registered deaths. Cadets who were hit by the simulation weapons had their armor lock up. They couldn't move, couldn't fight. They were out of the battle. By the 3rd hour, half the cadets were down. The survivors were pinned in a building with the AI's forces surrounding them. They had nowhere to go, no way to advance. The situation looked hopeless. "We need to retreat," Kelver said. He was wounded. The simulation had tagged his left arm. It hung useless at his side. "Can't retreat," Lyra replied. "They have the exits covered. We go out there, we die. Then we're trapped." They were. The AI had done exactly what it was supposed to do. It had adapted. It had learned. It had trapped them in an impossible situation. This was where most squads failed. This was where they gave up. Minji looked around the building. They were on the 3rd floor, windows on all sides, but the windows faced streets where enemy forces waited. Going out any window meant certain death. The stairs were blocked. The roof was exposed. There was no way out. She thought about Earth, about the training that had seemed so pointless at the time. Running until you vomited, climbing until you couldn't feel your hands, being pushed past every limit until you found new limits. What was the point of it all? The point was this. The point was moments when there was no way forward, when the normal options were gone, when you had to find something beyond normal. "We go down," she said. "Down?" Kelvar stared at her. "The ground floor is full of enemies. Not the ground floor, lower, below ground. There is no below ground. This is a simulation. Simulations are built on real architecture. Real cities have basements, sewers, maintenance tunnels, infrastructure. The AI is smart, but is it smart enough to guard places that shouldn't exist?" She didn't wait for an answer. She started searching the building. The other humans joined her. They had learned to trust her instincts. In the corner of a storage room, Deho found it. A metal grate. A maintenance access. It was small, built for service drones, but humans could fit. "This isn't on the official map," Lyra said, looking at her display. "Exactly," Minji replied. "The AI is using the official map. It doesn't know about this. We use what it doesn't know." They went down, one by one, dropping into darkness. The tunnel was tight and uncomfortable, but it was there. It was real, and the AI's forces weren't guarding it. They emerged 2 blocks away. Behind the enemy lines, the AI's forces were still surrounding the building, waiting for them to come out the normal way. They never expected the humans to disappear through a maintenance tunnel. "That shouldn't have worked," Kelvar said. He sounded stunned. "It worked because nobody thinks about maintenance tunnels," Minji replied. "Nobody thinks about the spaces between spaces. Humans do. Because on Earth, those spaces were where we hid from predators, where we survived when we couldn't fight. They pressed their advantage, hit the AI's forces from behind, broke the encirclement, freed the cadets who were pinned in the building. The battle turned, slowly at first, then faster. The surviving cadets rallied, pushed forward, started winning again. The AI adapted again. It created a new challenge. A fortress, heavily defended, impossible to assault directly. The cadets studied it, tried to find a way in, found nothing. This was designed to be unbeatable. A final test of creativity and determination. We need heavy weapons, someone suggested. Break through the walls. No time to get heavy weapons, another cadet replied. And they'd hear us coming. They argued, debated, tried to find a solution. Minji sat quietly and watched the fortress, watched how the defenders moved, watched the pattern of their patrols, watched how they never looked in certain directions. Never looked up, she had seen this before. At the combat maze. The defenders were good, well-trained, but they thought in 2 dimensions. They defended the ground. They defended the walls. They didn't defend the air. Can anyone here fly? She asked. Several species could. The crystalline beings, some of the lighter aliens. They could float or hover for short periods. Can you carry someone while you fly? Maybe, if they're light enough. If the distance is short, why? Minji pointed at the fortress. At the roof. Because they're not watching up there. We get on the roof. Come down from inside. Hit them where they're not expecting. That's insane, Kelvar said. Even if we get to the roof, we'd be trapped inside with all of them. Only if we all go in. We send a small team, fast team. While they're dealing with the team inside, the rest of us hit the front gates. They'll be confused. Looking in 2 directions, that's when we push through. It was risky. It was desperate. It was exactly the kind of plan that shouldn't work. But everyone was tired. Everyone was running out of options. And the human had been right before. About the tunnels. About the vertical tactics. About everything. Who goes on the roof team? Lyra asked. I do, Minji said. And any humans who volunteer. Salmon raised her hand. Then Hyun, then Daeho, then all the humans. Every single one of them. Kelvar stared at them. You'll probably die. You know that, right? In the simulation, death means failure. You'll all fail? Maybe, Minji said. But if we succeed, everyone else passes. That's worth it. Why? Why would you sacrifice yourselves for us? Minji thought about that. About Earth, about evolution. About pack bonding. About how human ancestors survived by working together. By protecting each other. By understanding that the group was more important than the individual. Because that's what humans do, she finally said. We protect the pack. Even if it costs us. Especially if it costs us. The crystalline beings carried the humans to the roof. It was terrifying. Flying through the air with nothing below you but hard ground. But the humans didn't scream. Didn't panic. They just held on and trusted their teammates. They landed on the roof silently, found an access hatch, went inside. The fortress was large and full of enemies. The humans moved through it like ghosts. Quick, quiet, careful. They had learned stealth in the dark tunnels of their simulation training. Had learned to move without sound. To strike without warning. They reached the central control room and opened fire. The enemy forces were caught completely off guard. They had never expected anyone to be inside. They turned to face this new threat. Left their positions at the walls. Focused inward. And that's when the main force hit the gates. Smashed through while the defenders were distracted. Poured into the fortress. Overwhelmed the enemy. Secured the objective. The simulation ended. The lights came back on. The battlefield disappeared. They were standing in an empty chamber. Exhausted. Bleeding from simulated wounds. But alive. All of them. Even the humans who had volunteered for the suicide mission. They had survived. A message appeared on everyone's display. Simulation complete. All cadets passed. Final score, exceptional. There was a moment of silence. Then cheering. Cadets from different species embraced, celebrated. They had done it. They had beaten the simulation that 40% failed. They had done it together.